It's very loud. It's very loud, but yeah, obviously an amazing day. Win 5-1 here. One of the best teams in the league this season. Sets up very well for the final push. Very happy. Very content. Great atmosphere. Great away day. The best this season by far. So yeah, all good. Up the toffees.
You are listening to some crooked voices on Everton's podcast, Everton's post-match, I should say. My head's all over the place here. Brighton 1, which many people probably would have expected. Everton 5, none of us certainly did expect that, and that's the way it finished. Down at the Amex, down south. Rob Vera's with me now. The two of us are going to go through this. Quite a remarkable performance and result. First thing I'll point in your direction, Rob, and obviously many people will throw at me all the time that I'm quite a negative Everton fan, although this season is probably appropriate. You look at a result like that, where the fuck has it been?
I mean, there's a lot of layers to
as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, Dave, there's a lot of layers to a question like that. And what I don't want to do, like, I'm enjoying this moment. I'm enjoying today, not only because of like, we get to enjoy it on all levels, don't we? Because it wasn't just an impressive scoreline. It wasn't just a quality opponent that we beat. It wasn't just that we did it on the road. It was not just that the result today was incredibly consequential to the existence of Everton, not only in the Premier League, but arguably as a football club, depending on what you think about, Everton's chances of navigating the murky waters of the championship. But I think that I'm just in pure both shock and in a state of pure joy. The answer to your question, of course, is that we haven't seen this nearly enough. Like we've talked about this before, Dave. We win so infrequently that we can't help, and I don't even blame us at times, but we can't help but almost over celebrating a win because they're so rare. Like, we appreciate wins in a way, I'd like to say that, you other clubs, like you City fans, you Arsenal fans, you enjoy winning every week. No one appreciates wins like Everton supporters enjoy wins. We do it so infrequently. But what I will say is that the reason that we have not seen, I think this is an abnormal scoreline. Even if we were in a state of relative health as a club, 5-1 is just a very heavy result. I just can't, when we go months without scoring 5 goals. So I think the answer to your question is the reason we don't see this more often, or the reason, where has this been? Well, it's got a lot of authors, doesn't it? It's a combination of, I think, obviously injuries, when your best players are frequently unavailable, or as we saw today, frequently unselected. That's part of it. Another part of it is just that this club and this group of players has had a hard time kind of balancing what I think is effort and performance. And what I mean by that is that we all like to say that thing, Dave, that's very Everton of us, where we say, all we want is a maximum effort from our players, and that's enough. Well, but if we're being honest, it's not enough, and that's not the minimum we need. What we need is focused effort. We need maximum effort from our best players that allows them to perform, actually to get results. Running around, like a chicken with your head cut off, it sounds, it sounds fine. It makes for a 5-second sound bite and a rallying cry or whatever. But what we saw today, and this, we'll come on to talk about these guys a lot, where we saw Everton's best players actually being their best players. And that's what we don't get to see nearly enough, because this group, as much as I enjoyed this today, they have not done this nearly enough for what we, have brought them to the club to be able to do. However, all that aside, Dwight McNeil, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and Abdoulaye Doucouré were absolutely, for me, 10 out of 10s all across the board. And that's without Calvert-Lewin even scoring a goal. I mean, that was just, those guys decided from the second that the whistle blew to start this match that they were going to not only look threatening, but actually be threatening and to actually capitalize and to do it early. You even had the commentator at the beginning of the game, Dave, say, I wonder if this might be one of those situations where you almost don't want to score too early. And I thought to myself, don't score goals. You'll take goals whenever you can get.
That's exactly
but the difference today, Dave, was Everton building on that goal and saying, 1 is not enough, 2 is not enough, 3 is not enough. And that for me was, we talk about ruthlessness, edge, whatever. There was a kick in the backside that Everton seemed to have gotten today. And it doesn't just come from one person or a manager or one player or what have you. Mm-hmm. There seemed to be a collective feeling that they were going to explode on someone today. And it just happened to be Brighton. And I don't know where this is or how you bottle it or how you could get it to be repeated over and over again. But this win takes us from being 6 in 10 chance of going down, Dave, to, if you look at 538 site now, we're down to 22%. That's how much a 3 points means today. Yeah. And with 3 games left to go, hey, get one more win and we should be fine. We get, a draw and a win, we should probably be fine. We're still clearly not out of the woods yet, but today was absolutely massive for Everton's chances of staying in the Premier League.
Yeah, and what you say there about the percentages of us staying up as we speak right now, the other game that's it's huge for us. Nottingham Forest currently playing Southampton. It's currently 0-0 as we do this, but obviously we're not going to be able to discuss that at the moment. But the thing that you said there, and there's so many points that you made in terms of performance, the attitude that we had, the way we seemed to set up in this was. I don't know. I'd never go as far as saying this about Sean Dyche because he's been a bit of an enigma given the conversations we've had, both in the long con that we did recently, but also post-match last week. He started to develop something that, certainly in my point of view, we discussed at length whether he'd be part of the blame if we were to go down. I think what he set up today. And if that's his intention, going down to a club like Brighton, who've been fantastic this season, one of my favourites. We spoke about that at length also, didn't we, about Brighton themselves? Yeah. We get into a position to go there, score 5, score a goal, to be honest with you, given the situation we've had this season. We've just scored more than 10% of our goals this season in that one game, which is incredible in itself. But also, with Dyche and the setup he's gone for there, I mean, I looked at it and I thought that's probably the best we can do going there. The way he's put McNeil in.
Maybe Onana. Maybe I would have had Onana in for Garner, but you can't really argue with the result today.
That's it. And he's proved promising. I know again he's somebody we talked about as we don't know what he's going to be like for us yet because he's not probably in the right circumstances and the right side where he's going to show the best that he can do. But It was funny with me when I seen the lineup because I thought there is absolutely no way. All week I was thinking this: there is no way he's going to drop Michael Keane after everything he said about him.
Yeah,
and lo and behold, he did.
I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked, Dave.
Completely agree. Completely agree. And I thought when he's put Mina in there as well. Obviously now with the hindsight, we throw a lot of respect towards him for doing that. But I thought. He's not the type of manager that is for change in regards to admitting that he's wrong. And I don't think he'd publicly say that he was wrong. But
he won't.
Statements about Keane that he's made that, he played really well for 40-odd minutes or, he was our best player tonight. He kept on coming out with those sound bites recently that made me think there's no way he's ever going to drop him because he was that desperate to prove himself correct. Lo and behold, drops him, puts Mina in. Again, you referred to 10 out of 10 for the 3 players you mentioned there. I put that right up in his case tonight. I thought he led that side at the back. And I didn't think it'd be that way. I thought it'd be Tarkowski, who was generally...
He was great too. I mean, Tarkowski was really good too, but...
he was, but everything in the air. And obviously it's one of his main things, isn't it? Main attributes when it comes to me in terms of winning. But I tell you what, they've got some big boys. Dunk, who they've got, is a tremendous header of the ball. As a defender, he scores as well. and he just seemed to have him in his arse pocket. And I looked at this and got to half time. I was sitting there looking at my missus saying, she doesn't give a shit about Everton, but the amount of time she's seen me hysterically talk about the club, even to her, which pisses her off. And then she said to me, "Oh, I didn't think you'd do this today." I was like, "You don't even like football." She went, "Yeah, but I follow you with it all the time. I know the way you talk and how you feel about it." And when I saw that the lineup, I thought, well, we go there and get a point. That's a big result for us if we don't lose this. To go there and go up as quickly as we can. And again, like you said there, Ian Dark, who's the commentator who said that sometimes you score too early. That is actually that's happened to us in the past where, basically that means that you've gone 1-0 up, so you're going to try and defend everything you've got and just basically have 11 men.
FA Cup final, if I recall, that had that very same feeling.
Exactly, where you're keeping 11 men behind the ball and you'll get like 20% possession all the way through the game. But yeah, I was just overjoyed at the end of that. And the one player there, we mentioned a couple who you thought were best and 10 out of 10s. I think today, and I put that on my Twitter recently, I think Dwight McNeil might well have repaid the £20 million we paid for him and have moaned about so often ever since he joined the club. Because if this keeps us up, mate, he's done more than that. And you mentioned Calvert-Lewin.
Did he get a brace today, or was that that first one considered an own goal? I can't recall.
No, it was because he's trying to cross it and then his legs. So it's nearly a hat trick, isn't it? But
it was nearly a hat trick. He got a brace. Yeah.
And that one is the second one he scored. The first one he scored at a workout as where he just runs around the keeper was just taking the piss. And and then I started thinking, is this because they've been held behind the leash so long, particularly when Dyche has come in? Or is this a one-off? Obviously, you have to assume that this is a one-off, given how poor they've been, both under Dyche and whatnot. But you mentioned Calvert-Lewin, these things that changed and people started to look much more confident in themselves. Calvert-Lewin as a number 9 on his own, where we defend deeply, that's been a big issue for a while, is getting him to be that kind of centre forward, regardless of the injuries he's had. But today he led that line superbly well. It was a real proper number 9 performance. He held it up, he passed it, he got everybody turned around, running towards them, and everybody behind him. Obviously, McNeil's the man of the match for me, but nobody will mention it much. But I thought Iwobi was really, really good too. This just generally, and I couldn't believe, Rob, that me and you would be talking post-match away one of the best sides in the Premier League this season, so optimistically and overly enjoyed by Everton winning a game this season. I didn't think it was going to happen, and lo and behold, Dave is sort of going a bit too far about it.
Dave, I posted on Twitter at halftime, when did you ever think you would say this sentence about Everton? We really should be up 4-0 instead of 3-0.
Oh, Garner's missed, though, I have to say, Rob, at the time, and I think I'm speaking for many Blues when I say this. When Garner missed that chance 1 minute before halftime, I was thinking, this is going to come to rue us. This is going to come back. Even though we're winning 3-0, I'm thinking, this is going to bite us. This will bite us on the arse that we never got the 4th goal. That's how little faith I've had with the club so far this season. But thankfully, and again, he was like we mentioned, that midfield 3, and Decore as well. I mean, he pushes McNeil for the man of the match, in my opinion.
This match had the goal he scores
is immense. Go on.
I was going to say the match had a really interesting feeling starting in the second half too, didn't it? Because that feeling that you just articulated about us not scoring that 4th goal, of course, the very fatalistic nature that we have all made us feel that our 3-goal lead was actually much smaller, right? I mean, Brighton make 4 changes at halftime. And what I couldn't tell was, is this kind of a wave the white flag 4 changes, or is this a 4 changes with some intent? And it was definitely the latter. Brighton came out exactly as I kind of would have expected, I suppose, in that they were never going to let us get off to a fast start in the second half. We had to know, and I imagine Dyche said this to them at halftime, that look, they're going to come out angry and they're going to come out aggressive, and you've got to kind of be prepared to weather the storm. And there was definitely a feeling that I don't think I was alone in feeling of thinking that we've got a 3-goal lead and yet we can't allow a goal here, because if we allow one, anytime in that first like 10 to 15 minutes of the second half, I think all of us would have started to have that sinking feeling. And to Everton's credit, they really did weather quite a storm. I mean, Jordan Pickford, who won't, I would assume will get plenty of plaudits for this game, but you don't look at a 5-1 scoreline and think that the goalkeeper must have played a huge role. But Jordan Pickford absolutely made some spectacular saves at those inflection points, right? Those points in the game where if one ball just hits the back of the net for Brighton at the right time, do they suddenly have momentum? Do they suddenly have an impetus to get interested in this game again? And I thought Pickford was massive. Having a defense today in front of him, though, that was fighting for every ball. And I mean, I haven't seen the stats yet, but just the sheer number of aerial duels and balls cleared out via the heads of Yerry Mina and James Tarkowski today were just, it was just outstanding to watch. But it wasn't just that. It wasn't an easy day. I mean, there was a lot of guys just throwing their bodies at the ball today and throwing themselves in front of crosses and getting deflection, second man to the ball, all the things that we say are important, but felt even more urgent today. And for Everton to then get that fourth goal, and then you knew it was pretty much over at that point. And it speaks a lot to the state of Everton now that we only felt comfortable after we were up 4-0 instead of 3. But look, the performance today was so huge on so many levels. I think for, as we said, a road game against a really, really good side, everyone's quote favorite side outside of the top 7. And to do so with so much on the line, while also I think I don't want to lose sight of this in the larger discussion. As great as McNeil and Calvert-Lewin and Decore were today, I think today was absolutely huge for guys like Nathan Patterson, for Mikolenko, for obviously for Yerry Mina to come in after having not played since January and not only give you 90 minutes but give you 90 minutes of just colossal defending. I mean, to have all of those players click at once, I think is huge. And now, look, no one is going to fancy us getting anything from City, but you'd have that game coming to Goodison off the back of this kind of win, and suddenly you feel like this is a team with maybe even some irrational confidence at this point that can go into a match like that and say, hey, we've got everything to play for. We're here at Goodison. This is our penultimate game of the season. Why not? But the bottom line is that the mathematical equation here, Dave, which I'm not completely clear on at this point, but I'm sure someone can work it out, is much, much more favorable when you get a win today. Those 3 points bringing us up to 16th now put us in a position where even if we get nothing from City at home next week, to be able to, if we can play like this away at Brighton, there's a real opportunity against Wolves, who really will have nothing to play for at that point.
No, they're automatically safe now. They are confirmed safe, yeah.
Okay, so they've got nothing to play for. And then look, Bournemouth probably has nothing to play for on the final day either. Again, it's Bournemouth. They are the stuff of nightmares. I understand all of that. But, if we get down to, I would love to be in a scenario, by the way, where we take care of business against Wolves and, we're going into that last game of the season, just getting to, not having to be stressed out about it. But this was just so huge today. It takes so much pressure off. Yes, Dave, there will be time to talk about the frustration I have that certain, maybe changes weren't made earlier to stem some of the bleeding we've had. Whatever. But today is about today. Today's about today, and this was a huge result. And this is probably, not to make too much out of one win, but you look at that table, this is the most kind of cautiously optimistic I've felt in a long time about us surviving the drop.
Yeah, and the thing that I get generally from it, without going through particular players that we've already mentioned here, is I'm not going to go as far as saying a feeling of confidence, but it's that traditional thing that all of us as Evertonians have always associated with the way our club's been is having that level of fight. I mean, how many times have you seen on Twitter? How many times have you seen fans saying? How many times have you heard on our podcast people are saying, "Just fight for us"? That's all we ask. Is just fight for us, particularly at this level, at this stage, as fans of the football club. Just give it 100%. And I know they're cliche sayings, but that's almost always been what's got us by as a club, and we never used to have money. And then the really most ironic thing ever, when we actually got money and spent it like shit, that sort of thing, the things that we used to assume Everton players would always do in fight for everything they could, that seemed to have gone by the wayside, and that wasn't a cliche in itself. So much so that today we're sat here talking about this as being something that is a massive aspect of what we've gone and done to get that win at Brighton, which we've not done much at all. I go as far as saying in recent years, let alone these 2 seasons in a row where we've, well, let's not say it about this one, but in a relegation fight, those things haven't been there. It's obvious the things we've spoken about with defeats and issues away from the pitch and things like that. Just a huge fucking mess. For them to go out and do this today, there's a real purity in what each of them did. And to be fair, I'd thought this was what Sean Dyche would be bringing in when he did come in. I know we spoke initially when he came in, is that the right man to get? Is he who we want? And is that the safest option we've gone for instead of Bielsa and whatnot? When you see that today, I'm not going far as saying that that's a really Dyche type. That hasn't got the Dyche stamp on it at all. But I would go as far as saying that seems to be what Sean Dyche has made his managerial career by doing, is getting the players in the right attitude. And that's what we saw today. That was similar to me, the way in which we played against his first game against Arsenal at home, which many of us will remember because it was his first match as manager. The way we played in that and fought for each other, that was there tonight. But actually, I go back to that statement he made when he first came in, Rob, when he did his first press conference, and he said, "Yeah, we're going to look at players if they're available to buy in the January transfer window and whatnot," and that didn't happen. But he said, "You need to remember," and again, he's just saying it for the sake of saying it, and that sort of thing that he has to as a new manager. But when he made those comments and said, "We've got some really good players here. You need to go and have a look at them. We've got some really good players," and 99.9% of us as fans would say, "Yeah, mate, you haven't saw them enough yet then, have you? Because they're not any good." But then you look at tonight, the opposite side of that, and the way he's obviously expressed them himself, because he's the manager, he's the one who talks to them. And then for them to get that second win in the second half, because we all knew that Brighton were going to come at us at some point. We broke them down so well. We played really nice counter-attacking football, but you knew they'd get chances. And the one man we haven't mentioned yet, heading towards the end of this, is Jordan Pickford, because
we did mention him. I mentioned him before.
Make no mistake,
but that's okay.
those saves he made.
Those saves,
even though you look at the score and people will say, "Oh yeah, it doesn't fucking matter anyway." I tell you what, when we're 3-0 down, well, that's it. When we're 3-0 down, and he still makes those saves, if they go back to 3-1, that's game on. That is game on for them, and we're all going to be standing there saying, "Yeah, I'm absolutely shitting myself here." Like I said to you, that sort of attitude I had at halftime to say that, "Oh, Garner missing that one to make it 4-0. We're going to rue that. We are absolutely going to rue that." You can't blame us as fans for feeling that way, but to see him in there, the saves he makes, he was also immense tonight. If you had no context of what this Everton side were like, Rob, and how poor they've been for the last couple of years, you would look at that match and think that we were comfortably a mid-table / European challenging type of side. When did you, when I said at the start, where did that come from? When did you think we could put that sort of performance out there? I certainly didn't.
No. And I think, I'm just kind of reading through some of the quotes after the game. I mean, Sean Dyche clearly, he would be completely disingenuous if he said, or if anyone said they saw this coming, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
he'll say, "Look, we've been building on this for a bit and blah blah blah. I've been tired of hearing, hey, we've been doing some positive things. Like when you don't win a game for 2 months, I don't really want to hear about, oh, trust me, I know you can't tell, but it's getting better. Like there were some really ugly performances in there. The Fulham game comes to mind, and a couple
Newcastle.
others. Newcastle. I mean, it just so whatever. The bottom line is that I have been consistent, and so I want to remain consistent on this. In that, Sean Dyche is going to only be judged this season by his ability to keep us up. We stay up. Then he gets to keep his job. He pockets a nice little bonus. If we go down, he doesn't deserve to keep the job because that was the only job he had, and he came in saying he would keep us up. So you can't start off a new regime by failing at the most important thing, which is the existential identity of your club. But look, I think with Dyche, I want to give him. This is tough for me, Dave, because on the one hand, I look at Yerry Mina today, and look, you guys know that if I'm on a podcast after a game like this, I'm gonna say it. But I look at a game like today, and I want to give him credit because, to your point, Dave, all of the things he said all week made it sound like he was doubling and tripling down on keeping Michael Keane in the side. I don't know what changed. I don't know if he slept on it and finally said, I can't do this, or if he said, look, I'm going to roll the dice, roll the Dyche, if you will. And I'm going to roll the dice, and because I don't have anything to lose at this point, but if I continue to do the same thing and don't stem the bleeding in particular defensively, then there's no shot here. And I think it's kind of no lose for him from the standpoint that, look, if Mina comes in and plays 20 minutes and goes off with a groin injury or something, then you're right back where you started. And then he gets to say, see, this is why I didn't play him. But if you do play him and he has a game like this, then suddenly you look smart. But I will say that if Mina continues to play like this for the final 3 games of his Everton career, especially given how much he's being paid a week, a lot of questions would rightly be asked about why didn't he come in earlier? Could we have been safer earlier, et cetera? But at the end of the day, no one's going to probably relitigate that, because if we stay up, all's well that ends well, right? And so that's the bottom line. I give Dyche credit today for probably swallowing his very considerable pride. Let's make no mistake, and having to look himself in the mirror and look at Michael Keane, who he absolutely clearly loves like a son, and benching him today. I saw this quote that didn't make a ton of rounds, but this is before the match. It said Sean Dyche was asked about Yerry Mina starting today, and his response was, he's been chomping at the bit, and we think it's the right time at this moment. Now, that's sort of a generic thing to say, fine. But what that does say, and I want to give Yerry the appropriate credit here, he's the only player in the squad who has not played a single minute under Sean Dyche since he came in. For him to have played no minutes, not even like coming on for the last 5 minutes to, for cleanup or, like just kind of killing off a game. Yeah. Had to have played 0 minutes since January, Dave. Like the transfer window was still open the last time Yerry Mina set foot on a football pitch for Everton. For him to come in shows that he clearly had continued to maintain, despite not playing and despite how easily he could have gotten down about all of this, he maintained a good attitude in training. He clearly pushed and pushed and pushed in training to get this opportunity and to be ready, as he claims he's been. And I think that paid off today. I give credit to Dyche for finally pulling the trigger. I give credit to Mina for putting in that performance today. And look, if Mina doesn't play another game for us, let's say we find out after the game he's somehow played 90 minutes and looked great, but he tore both hamstrings off because he's made of biscuits, and insert your own jokes here. We will have gotten a 3 points that Yerry Mina was, he was not the man of the match today. I don't want to overstate it, but he was a big part of these 3 points in the way that he was also a big part and arguably the man of the match in last season's 1-0 win over Chelsea at home, in games that we absolutely have to have down the stretch. I love that Mina's going to get a chance to go out on a positive note potentially, and I applaud Dyche for pulling the trigger. Now comes a few more games. We've got a few more games left to go. Forest is, there's a good chance that they're going to dispatch with Southampton today. So there's still work to do, but the signs certainly are much more encouraging after today than they have been.
Yeah, I mean, just to finalize, we only got a couple of minutes left, but what we were talking about there with Dyche, I wouldn't go as far as saying that and it obviously is no coincidence that you've taken a struggling Michael Keane out of the side, put in Mina, given the circumstances, hasn't made a minute underneath him, back since what he did under Frank Lampard. For him to come on here, put that performance in, I wouldn't go as far as saying that Sean Dyche should be eating some sort of humble pie here. I wouldn't go as far as saying that, because another thing I want to put in his credit here, and again, I'm still reluctant to, because obviously there's still, we're still in the shit. We've still got to stay up. Is a common theme that you've seen in many managers for us. In fact, probably all of them, aside from Ancelotti, maybe, where there's a severe stubbornness amongst the managers that we've had, and he's no different. And you can see that by the fact he didn't take out Keane, given the fact that, let's say 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, when he started consistently playing him, there were issues straight from the start. Now, this isn't a podcast because we've mentioned it a lot, and criticism of Michael Keane is appropriate in those situations where we have. But for him to only take it to this stage to make that change, because it's something that we repeatedly said in the last few post-match pods, that get Cody in, get Mina in, at least just make a change here.
Yeah.
It seemed to me that he had a real stubbornness, and one that was far too much unneeded given the situation we were in. I understand that managers that are at a stage where you're trying to save a club, you don't want to start experimenting. You don't want to start making changes thinking, he's been poor, so, knee-jerk reactions. Michael Keane's wasn't a knee-jerk reaction.
No, nothing knee-jerk about this.
Exactly. He needed changing a lot sooner than today. And I think most of us have known that. Every fan, I've not seen a fan say that he shouldn't have been taken out of the side. Now,
well, Dave, I'll make this deal with you and with everyone else in regards to Dyche. Look, if we stay up, I will never talk about the Dyche-Mina dynamic ever again. There's no point, right? If we go down, there will rightly be questions asked about why it took so long to address something that was so clearly for anyone's eye, in front of anyone's eyes, to see that was a problem. But again, all's well that ends well. If it ends well, then then it's a dead issue, and that's fine. But look, I'll say this: what you get in Mina is what I think you get in Cody in terms of a leader out there, a very vocal leader in the back line. But you also get him in a 6'5" frame, and he's completely unafraid of balls flying in, and aerial duels and those sorts of things. He also manages he didn't even skip a beat today. He manages to get into the heads of his opponents and the guys he's playing against, who absolutely hate playing against him, and you would hate him if he was not on your team, and you need guys like that. And so, look, even if this is all we get, great. But if we can get 2 or 3 more games like this out of Mina, then I fancy our chances to stay up. But hey, look, just more of this from Decore, McNeil, Calvert-Lewin. If they can, their fitness is just so vital, and especially Calvert-Lewin. It's just, we would be safely mid-table, to your point, Dave, if we had Calvert-Lewin or we had Mina for a longer stretch, but especially Calvert-Lewin. He just is the thing. He's the to kind of end things off, to borrow an expression from one of my favorite films ever. Calvert-Lewin is the rug that ties this room together, my man. And if you can keep him in, I think Everton just give themselves the best possible chance. And if you're playing your best defensive lineup with Calvert-Lewin and group firing on all cylinders, then there's no reason we shouldn't stay up.
think that's an excellent way to end post-match after Everton's phenomenal 5-1 win at Brighton. We've scored 5 goals. We've got in 2 games, which is quite remarkable when you think where we've been and where we currently are. Let's be fair. There's still, I don't want to wax. Well, I do want to wax lyrical as a performance like this on its own, given the context of where we are. You know, that's a huge 3 points we've taken. Plenty to come on the Blue Room as always, both on Patreon and on the free weekly that we've got coming up this week. Bagfuls of content, and also going to be looking ahead to this. There's another humdinger of a game against Manchester City on Sunday. Thanks so much for listening to us, as always. Thanks to Rob, as always. And we'll be back soon. Up the Toffees.